What's the standard that you've reached at the moment?
So my parents.
I'll give you an example. So somebody might say, you know what, I believe that there is an entity, I just don't know where it is. Or someone might say, look, I believe in prophets as well, but I just don't know which one. So just tell me, where have you reached so far? Then we can just...
Can I give you a bit of background?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So my parents raised me Hindu, but I didn't really mesh with that, if that makes sense. Because I was just like, where's your evidence? And then I did a degree in physics. So my degree was there's all this information that we do know, and there's all these things that we do have evidence for, but then they did fully acknowledge there's things we just don't have answers for. And then obviously growing up in the UK, I have extensive experience with Christianity and to a degree Judaism. And so I'd say that I'm well informed on Hinduism and Christianity, but any other religion I wouldn't really say that I'm that well informed on.
So as Muslims, we believe absolutely, completely and totally there is only one God. We believe that God sent many, many messengers, approximately 124,000. The last messenger being the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So I've obviously been raised with a polytheistic background with my parents, and then grew up in England where it's monotheistic. And there's the question of evil, right? Which is, if there is one all-powerful God, why does he allow evil to exist and such? And then the Hindu answer is obviously there are loads of gods, there are goals and ideals that always align, and there are comparably powerful devils, and the ongoing struggle is why evil still exists. So what would your response be to that? I'm not asking as trying to defeat anything. I'm genuinely curious what your response
No problem,
would be.
brother. I want you to be comfortable in this discussion. I'd rather you ask the difficult questions, get the answers and leave with something, as opposed to just saying questions that will not ruffle any feathers and not leave with anything.
Yeah, because I just want to get, because I've had this answer from the Christian perspective, and my parents obviously gave their own answer when I was growing up, so I was just curious what your answer would be.
So we believe that bad things happen because number one, it's a consequence of free will. Yeah? So...
Okay. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But I understand that insofar as wars and famine and poverty. I guess I'm more curious about earthquakes and hurricanes.
Yeah. So I'm giving you a three-pronged answer.
Sure,
Hopefully I will have covered all three of them by then. So number one, it's free will. The fact that we can do certain things, we do certain things, that is a consequence of having that choice. Otherwise, we're just puppets on a string.
I understand. We need some freedom in order to grow spiritually.
Yes.
And if we were just directed into certain moral goals, we wouldn't appreciate them for what they are.
Good. And secondly, we say that bad things happening are a test for us. So it's a way of us proving our obedience to God about how we deal with certain situations. And thirdly, it is, in philosophy of religion, they say soul gaining. Yeah. In other words, it builds one's soul from when bad things happen. So, and again, there's studies to supplement this, like the study of the University of Miami, which says something to the effect of, if a person has gone through certain challenging and trying things, it makes them more empathetic. It makes them more concerned. It makes them more open to helping others that are less fortunate.
Them as a person.
Yeah, so soul gaining.
Okay.
So these are three rough points about why bad things happen.
I'm fully willing to concede the first. That makes absolute sense to me. The second and third, I have questions if you're okay with that.
Sure.
So for the second, I'm used to tests being fair and just. By that I mean, if I take a test, I expect it to be something that's let me put it this way. When I did my GCSEs, when I did my A-levels, when I did my university tests, they were if you've done the requisite preparation and you've put in the effort, you will have a reasonable... You're not going to utterly fail.
I'm just going to fast track our discussion slightly.
Sure.
Because obviously you can see...
You're setting up.
Yeah. So forgive me for kind of interrupting. And
no, of course.
I'm not trying to strawman you. So when it comes to the Western system that you mentioned, I liked the little caveat that you put in, if you've put in the relevant preparation. Because if you haven't put in the relevant preparation,
You
maybe,
fair, lastly.
yeah, if something hasn't happened, then it's not fair. It's actually not. It's actually based upon the current kind of system is based upon
It's allegedly meritocracy.
pretty much. So
Yeah.
now bearing this in mind and comparing it with Islam, in our scripture we're told you're not going to be burdened more than you can bear.
But what
So-
are people who die from evils?
Yeah, so these are all, firstly, they're based upon our observation, our human-centric, limited observation of them. Oh, that person didn't deserve X, or they weren't able to handle Y, or this shouldn't have happened. However, we argue, we have the pixel, Allah has the picture. And we don't believe that world and life ends at death. We believe that after judgment, there is paradise. So certain people, they will get, life continues, and they will be given the
They'll
rewards.
be like recompensed. for
There will be
suffering.
recompense for that.
Can I ask a
If
question
for
then?
example, you're not a believer, then you'll be recompensed, and in this world for the good that you do. So from whatever angle you want to look at, that's how we kind of answer that. Yes.
So in point 3, you said that you need some level of suffering to grow spiritually, which I somewhat agree with. I do think that hard times temper a person.
Yeah, hard times create
Good man.
good man,
Yes,
good
that's
dame.
the saying,
Yeah.
So, but going back to point 2, if, let's say, I'm going to take a really extreme example just because it's the easiest one to illustrate. If a child dies in a war, I think you'd agree with me that that's not fair to what any evils a child has done still doesn't justify dying in a war. Would you agree with me?
A child dying in war, there's a few. Yeah, take it. So a child dying in a war, firstly, it is free will, because there are certain.
Okay, sorry, I'll change my question. then.
Let me just, because it might be
Let's
something.
say a child dying in a landslide to avoid the free will question.
Okay, so a child dying in a landslide, again, if we're looking at objective morality, we believe that there is a strong case to be made that if a child was to die, they would go straight to paradise.
Okay, but then that child
And-
hasn't had the opportunity to grow through suffering as they would in this realm. So if a child dies at say the age of 8 and they've been sheltered as they rightfully
But
should be,
the growth of suffering doesn't necessarily have to only be restricted to the individual. It could also be, and is also, with the people around them.
Okay, but
So
what happens?
here's the thing now. I know certain parents that have lost certain children, and that has completely made them reevaluate and mature to such a degree that now when they have another child, they are in such a better position to not only look after that child, but their own brothers and sisters, their own parents when they get older. So the point that I'm trying to say is that because we believe in objective morality, the principle here still stands.
I agree that
yeah.
a parent can go through incredible suffering and loss of a child and therefore be a better parent going forwards. But I don't think, and this is my opinion personally, I don't think a perfect creator would require the sacrifice and the ultimate loss of a soul and that soul's growth in order to make another soul better. So what happens to the child that's lost and never got the chance to grow into a better person through suffering and through good and through the entirety of life in this realm? What happens to a child who had their growth cut off early because of an unavoidable natural incident?
So we say that this world is not the end. Yeah, so that growth will continue, but will continue in a more nurturing and a better realm, i.e. the realm of paradise.
So if that's possible, then why do we have to suffer here at all? I'm genuinely asking.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So you'll have certain people, their test will be a complete existence of 60 years. Other people, their test will be 30 years. Some people, their test will be 8 years, and then they continue living in paradise, but their life was to be a test for somebody else. Again, it's different tests bespoke for individual people, but it's all based upon, and it's all predicated on there actually being a creator and an existence.
Okay.
That's why the best way of us to kind of have and in the discussions that I have, it's more befitting for us to first prove that there is a creator, that creator is coherent, makes sense, and there is scripture, there is a prophet, and then morality then follows, because if the creator is there, the scripture is there, the prophet is there, then it necessitates or then follows that the morality that comes from that creator will be just, because if that creator is all-knowing, is the most merciful, etc., and it has been evidenced, that it then follows that the system of morality will be more just than what we have today.
I'm genuinely asking because I'm curious. You kind of jump from the step that there is a creator to that creator is just. What's the link between those steps?
Yeah, so remember the initial conversation that I wanted to have, and that's the logical progression, is first to evidence a creator.
Okay,
because
go
if a person doesn't believe in a creator, or at least a singular creator, then it's going to be problematic, because anything that's going to be said is going to be questioning the premise of the root of that morality. Whilst when you have first proven that there is a creator that is coherent, that's wise, that's loving, that's merciful, that's just, it then follows that whatever morality comes from said creator does make sense and is just. And do you see my point? Yeah,
but I still think you're skipping from there is a creator to that creator is just.
No, that's what I'm saying.
What's the link?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's where I wanted to be right at the beginning.
Oh, okay. So that's you're just taking it as assumed.
So then I think you brought in, you wanted to link into the evidence of there being a singular creator, because you said you understand the polytheistic creator.
I've been raised like with both.
Yeah, and then you said the issue with the singular creator would be the problem of evil. Then we started discussing the problem of evil.
Yes.
I don't mind going back to the original premise, i.e. I need to evidence that there has to be a singular creator. I'm happy to do that. But then it would be difficult, to then jump to this. So we argue that, do you believe that there's existence?
Oh yes. I couldn't argue. Sorry, I'm not standing on something. I'm not breathing something that I don't exist with all these million people around me.
Do you accept that there is two types of existences, dependent and independent?
Could you give me a more thorough definition? I'm curious what that means.
Yeah. So dependent would be, I'll give you the technical terms if you require it, otherwise for the ease of conversation.
Whatever you think I would best understand.
Yeah. So dependent is something that's composed of parts, something that can be any other way, and something that can cease to exist. An independent existence is something that cannot be any other way, cannot cease to exist, and is not composed of parts.
So, again, I'm going to use Western philosophy phrases here. I'm sorry. I'll let you guys go.
No, you can carry on.
Okay, we'll do a quick...
So in Western philosophy, the dependent would be anything that exists in the real world, and the independent would be like a Platonic ideal.
No, both of these are a priori. So these are known by first principles. So when you're looking at contingent, like if you're looking at, I'm going to fast track now, yeah?
Sure, yeah.
So when you're looking at, say, philosophy, and in philosophy, I'm talking about the philosophy of religion, if you're looking at modal logic, and so in modal logic, you've got contingent existence, a necessary existence, and an impossible existence. So that's how you divide up existence. And the argument that I wanted to propose to you was everything that exists in the universe, us included, and everything that we rely upon is dependent, or technical term contingent.
I'll take your word for that. That makes sense to me.
Yep. And if we take this forward, like contingent upon what? Contingent upon this, contingent upon X, contingent upon Y, contingent upon Z. So we take it to its fruition, then it leaves us with two options. Either there's an infinite regress, or there is a necessary existence, in parentheses, an independent existence.
Or there could be some fundamental theory of everything, according to physicists.
No, because you're taking a posteriori explanation. This is a priori argument, which is to do with first principles, which completely bypasses that which we observe, because the physical is that which we observe. It's a different grading of evidence. A priori is first principles, when you break everything down in terms of metaphysics and philosophy and logic and rationale. It's a deductive argument.
You're assuming there's something before physics, where there's a reasonable argument to be made that physics is the first thing.
No, that's not no. A reason being because anything physical is dependent by definition. Would you agree?
No, not necessarily. There's I'm not an expert in this, but there are quantum mechanical theory.
So in physics, is there an independent existence?
Yeah, quantum bubbles.
they're independent.
Yeah,
they're
they
not
can, like,
relying
they-
upon anything.
Yeah, they can kind of, well, apart from laws of physics themselves.
Then it's dependent.
Okay, but that's kind of assuming that that's a question that's never going to be answered. But if I'm willing to give religion the benefit of the doubt, I have to also give physics the benefit of the doubt.
No, it's because you're making a criteria error over here, because you're conflating a posteriori knowledge with a priori knowledge. When it comes to quantum bubbles, they rely upon something else, which by definition make them dependent. And what we then do is, when we then extrapolate this and we say, let's go all the way till the end, before, like Big Bang, pre-Big Bang, everything in the universe, we make it into a blob. Is that blob dependent or independent?
I don't have an answer because physics doesn't have an answer. But if I'm willing to give
Physics doesn't have an answer, but philosophically, if something is dependent, it means that it cannot be composed of parts, otherwise it would be dependent upon those parts. So by definition, everything in the universe being composed of parts has to be dependent. Dependent upon what? We say the independent, and that independent has to be a singular. Why? Because the end of that chain is a singular. Then we say, is it independent? Well, by definition it is. Is it pre and post eternal? It has to be if everything by definition relies upon it, and it's unlike anything else. Well, obviously it's the only independent existence and everything is dependent existence.
It has to be unique.
It has to be unique. So we say, according to chapter 112 of the Quran, that is our definition of God. Anything else, if you're saying there's a multiplicity of gods, what you're now saying is
there are multiple unique stems from which everything flows.
Exactly.
And that seems more unlikely than having one source.
Exactly, and that would lead to contradictions. For example, two independent existences that are simultaneously creating everything, which then causes more issues.
Polytheistic religions have a different definition of God than the definition you're using, wherein there is a creator God and all other gods are kind of like lesser than the creator God themselves. But like that gets really confusing if you look into it.
It does, because then what you're saying is that then Brahma is creating another entity which is his wife, but technically it's a creator. But then there are two other gods which can
there are 3 and there are 30 and there are 3,000.
Do you see? So you got Vishnu and Shiva, which Brahma will go to them for help. It's not coherent.
I mean, you could say that a father asking his son for help in this universe or like this physical realm is
coherent in the sense as we understand it through logic, i.e. the three laws of logic, i.e. the law of non-contradiction, the law of excluded middle, and the law of identity. If we just take the law of non-contradiction, if you are the all-powerful, you're the creator of everything, then by definition you don't need anybody else's assistance or help.
I don't think like polytheistic religions necessarily consider any god all-powerful, though, is I think the difference.
So I mean that would be an issue. Like the contingency argument wouldn't necessarily work for them. It would work for us more than it would work for them. So we would argue that logically, philosophically, if you look at even the cosmological arguments, we are more coherent in terms of argumentation than them.
I see where you're getting at there, yeah. But then I guess you're opening yourself up to physics, who say they fully bootstrap themselves.
But with physics, the thing is that we believe, again, that knowing the mechanism of something doesn't exclude the creator of that mechanism. For example, we don't believe evolution, Big Bang necessarily exclude a creator.
Because there has to be someone to set that in motion.
For example, there's a car, that car, I understand now how the car functions and works. That doesn't exclude Henry Ford who created that car.
Sure.
You see, so that's how we kind of square that circle.
But let's say...
Ali, make sure you're ready, yeah?
Let's say I have a tree, and I say that tree came from like a seed. Like, would that not make sense that I didn't necessarily... The seed isn't a creator, it's kind of just like an inanimate start. I guess it's not a perfect metaphor, because like, I'm not a physics expert, but there are some physics theories where like the universe kind of came from nothing and will go back to nothing in like this cycle.
Yeah, so there are many theories, and again, these theories, even if you take the multiverse, because like I mentioned, that's a posteriori, empiricist, materialistic argument, which has its place. However, when you're looking at philosophical arguments, they transcend that. A priori, argumentation by first principles. And if we're taking argumentation by first principles, you can have a multiverse or whatever it is that composed of parts. Can that cease to exist? Can it be any other way? Yes, then by definition it's dependent. We need to look towards an independent, and the cycle still continues. Either there's an infinite regress or there's an end to that chain. So that's why this argumentation of contingency argument of Ibn Sina, and then further developed by the likes of Ghazali and Ibn Taymiyyah and the likes, they undercuts all of that sort of stuff.
Do you have any of that, like, do you have a link to any of that? I'd be really interested in reading it.
Yeah, so there is a good book. You're an avid reader?
Yeah, I love reading.
Okay, so there's an...
Sorry, my phone is dead, but
no
if
problem.
you...
No problem.
Yeah.
So I'll maybe Burhan. So this is called the Burhan by Muhammad Hijab. Have you heard of Muhammad Hijab?
I have, yes.
Okay, so Muhammad Hijab has written a couple of books. One is Burhan. And the other is Kalam, Cosmological Argument.